Hey, I'm Brian Bell, owner of Conscious Fitness. I am a vegan, plant-based fitness and nutrition coach. I specialize in helping people get fit, strong, and healthy on a plant-based diet. But I wasn't always vegan. And in this video, I want to take you through the story of how I went from animal-based to plant-based. So it's a pretty wild ride, so strap in. So let's start from the very beginning, right? Before I got into anything animal-based or plant-based, I was just an average kid. I loved skateboarding, I loved hanging out with my friends, and I just loved eating a bunch of random food, right? Let's just be honest. I did not have a super healthy diet growing up. I ate pizza pretty much every day. I love ice cream. I was a super picky eater, and my mom kind of just let me be a picky eater, So she definitely made me kind of the same revolving meals that I was okay with. And honestly, like aside from, chicken and things like that, I just wasn't really eating a lot of meat anyways, to be honest. I was never really too big into meat. Like I remember the first time I ever was at a cookout when I was maybe 5 or 6, and I had a hot dog and I was like, oh, this is gross. I don't want it. So my parents said, well, let's get him the other thing, which was a hamburger. I took a bite out of that, didn't like it at all. So growing up, I stuck to a lot of just dairy. Definitely chicken was probably one of the major animal-based foods I would eat. And then also maybe bacon in the morning. Aside from that, pretty big on carbs. I love macaroni and cheese and spaghetti and pizza and things like that. So again, very, very picky eater. Everything kind of changed for me after high school when I decided I was going to really get into this nutrition thing. So I started working out more. I started paying attention to my nutrition. I was all online looking at all these forums like bodybuilding.com and learning about what a difference between a carb and a protein was. So I realized my diet needs to be a bit better. So within that time, I was doing a little bit of all the right things you're supposed to be doing, eating like chicken breast and, having a small amount of carbs with it. And it was very balanced. I just couldn't stick with that, mainly because I was bouncing around a lot, trying to figure out where it would make sense for me to live. So a gym here and there just kind of kept throwing me off. But really everything kind of changed for me when I discovered more intermittent fasting. Well, I got into intermittent fasting because I was really focused on burning body fat. So that was probably my first major goal, right? Let me burn some body fat. I want to get lean. I want to actually see my abs. That was much higher on the list for me than gaining like a ton of massive size, right? I looked at Brad Pitt in Fight Club and said that would be awesome to look and feel like that. So I got into intermittent fasting, and that really did help me, cut down body fat by reducing my eating window from about 11. Actually, I was probably doing maybe pushing till noon, all the way down to 8 p.m. So doing like a 16-hour fast, 8 hours of eating. It was like a night and day change. Like I started dropping body fat pretty quickly, and I was really happy with my results. Somewhere along with like intermittent fasting, I can't remember exactly how I discovered it, but I started learning more about low carb, and it just seemed like maybe it was someone who was doing intermittent fasting who was also doing low carb, but it really clicked, and I was like, oh cool, this is another way to like flush out extra water. Supposedly you can eat all that you want. That's what they always say, and believe it or not, I switched to low carb. So what I ended up doing, obviously carbohydrates, that's going to be a lot of your fruits, your vegetables, your starches, and your sugars. So it's going to be more of an animal-based diet. So I slowly dropped some of the harder things I used to love, like the pizza and things like that. I'd still eat cheese, right? But I was eating a lot of burgers. Like I'd have to cook them well done because I never really liked them to begin with. But I was doing a lot of bacon as well, a lot of pepperoni, a lot of chicken breasts. But yeah, mainly I was really doing like burgers without buns just to get more fat in. I basically abandoned all the stuff I was doing previously where I would try to mix in some carbohydrates as well. So now here I am, essentially just turned into more of this animal-based dieter. And really all of this really took a big change where I was noticing, hey, I'm finally lean. I've got, ripped abs. This is cool, but I didn't really have the size that I wanted. And that's where I somehow stumbled upon the anabolic diet by Charles Poliquin, which touted all about, more fat, more protein, more growth hormone. You're going to get really big. And so what happened was I started eating a tremendous amount of food. I think I was getting like 250 grams of protein a day. I mean, it was probably like 3,500 calories plus. And what happened was I got to the biggest weight I've ever seen on the scale. That was 184. I remember that. But I mean, I was gaining fat, man. I wasn't gaining just straight muscle. I was eating so much just to try to make any change happen. It was just too much. But here's the weirdest part about this. To do this all on animal-based foods and try to get these crazy high protein numbers, I ordered egg whites from a farm. It was powdered egg whites. And I would just add it in with water and just basically have these egg white protein smoothies. The grossest thing. I'm like, how did I ever do that? But the things that we do in pursuit to change our physique and to learn how to actually do this whole fitness journey the right way. So once I noticed I was like 184, I was realizing this is not sustainable. So to quickly recap, I had been doing low carb altogether for maybe about a year and a half, got really, really lean, finally got abs for really the first time in my life, but I just didn't really have the muscle size. So I realized I needed to do something different. And that's where I found the anabolic diet, paid attention to like really, really, really overdid it with calories. And I realized, okay, this low carb thing, something was off. I just got some signals that I'm like, I don't know, this doesn't make a lot of sense anymore. And this was just crazy because, I just went from being really lean and ripped on this like low carb diet, like animal based. I didn't have any dogma against it. I wasn't against vegetables. I just never liked them. But I wasn't like, yeah, it's carnivore is the way or animal based is the way. I never met a vegan. I never met a vegetarian. Didn't have any concept of anyone even doing that, to be honest. But now I'm in a position where I've just gained all this fat back and I just kind of drifted away from it. So I decided to kind of go back to more standard American diet kind of foods, still probably eating more of like the chicken and things like that. But I kind of, like I said, my ability to stay in the game when it came to fitness and my diet, it's always kind of went back and forth, mainly because I didn't have that stable structure like I do now of calisthenics and bodyweight movement. And, honestly, I know back then too, it's just, as far as digestion and motility, it's like, I just know it wasn't the best, right? I mean, when you're not getting any fiber in your diet at all, I looked really good, but it didn't feel healthy. It was just like, man, I'm doing a lot of restriction and then I'm overdoing it. And pretty much, I didn't have a huge, big negative reaction. It was just like, man, I just gained all this fat. This isn't working. Let me just kind of go back to eating a little bit more balanced. So that naturally kind of happened for the next couple years. And so here I am still doing a little bit of working out here or there, maybe 3 months at a time, then falling off. I'm still eating stuff like chicken breasts. I'm still kind of focused on eating higher protein, and trying to eat some of the better carbohydrate sources, kind of like your general, fitness enthusiast who's an omnivore would, right? Making healthy choices and not just going crazy eating junk. But this is the big change. This is where things start to shift and to open up the door into more of the plant-based world. I don't remember exactly why, or how I even found it, but I was just looking at more diet-based stuff. And online, I found this website called 30 Bananas a Day. And this guy, I got to see if the blog is still up. But this guy basically says, hey, I eat like 30 bananas a day. That's all I eat. I'm like a straight fruitarian. And I was like, that's wild. I never even heard of that. And like at the time, I never even heard of vegan, right, at that time. But I was like, okay, that's pretty crazy. Now, I don't want to do 30 bananas a day, but it gave me this idea. And I was like, I went to my brother. I was like, what if we just do a fruit and veggie cleanse, kind of like a little detox for a week? And we were working a summer job at that point, and he was like, dude, I'm down. So that's what we did. So we spent the entire day eating nothing but fruits. So I'm having apples and oranges, stuff like that. And then in the evening, we'd have a stir fry. So we'd make like potatoes, broccoli, you know, throw a bunch of veggies in there. And what was cool about it is it wasn't necessarily like an anti-meat thing. We weren't trying to say like, let's stop eating meat for a week. It was just like, let's eat only fruits and veggies. Like, let's add up, let's stock up on fruits and veggies. And we did that for about 6 or 7 days. And I had this amazing experience at the end of that 7-day period. I remember I was on his back porch and the sun was bright in the sky and it was hitting my skin. And I just felt like, oh my God, I'm like, I am the sun. Like, that is the energy that I really need. Like, that sunlight, that is like from like a level of just thinking about biophotons, about how it's charging my body up. I'm like, this is what I need. And so being in that semi kind of fasted, kind of detox cleanse state allowed me to just kind of activate a little bit more of my senses, right? Especially because I wasn't, without even thinking about it, I don't really think we even ate any meat that week, right? We're just doing fruits and veggies. Again, it wasn't anti-meat. It was just only fruits and veggies. At this point, I never heard anything about vegan or vegetarian still, and this is 2012. So that left such an unmistakable mark on me that I would never, ever forget. So fast forward, you know, I'm done with the little cleanse. It was cool. I lost a lot of like weight in my face too. Like my face kind of shaped up a little bit. I lost some like water retention and maybe some fat that was still there. So that was pretty cool. So next thing you know, we go back to work. We're doing our normal stuff. At the end of the season, about 3 months later, our boss takes us out to eat. And he gets a burger. My brother gets a burger and fries. I decide to get a burger and fries as well. And it was the worst. It just sat in my stomach for, it felt like 2 days, you know? I mean, it was just, the digestion of it was just so poor. And I remembered the state that I was in when I was on that fruit and veggie cleanse. So I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't add up. I remember how light, how good I felt, how vibrant, how kind of connected I was, like emotionally too. And this was just very dense, very heavy. So I was just kind of thinking, okay, I can't do that again. And it kind of made sense with the idea of how I never really liked meat to begin with, you know, especially like the red meat. I was never really a fan of it my entire life. So what really changed everything was about a week or two after this experience with the burger. I was kind of going through quite a bit because I just, a girlfriend of mine, she had broken up with me. I lost a lot of friends from this job. They all moved away back home. And I was just in this really transitional time in my life. And like, I didn't really know exactly what I'd be doing. You know, I just lost a job. I didn't really have a plan after the season. So I ended up having the opportunity to experience some more psilocybin. And that was a huge eye-opening experience, right? So my brother was kind of the host. He was making sure I was taken care of. I was with a couple other friends and we went basically to the park. We're just outside. And I remember being outside just like this. And I was talking to a friend of mine and I realized there's like no space between us. I'm like, we are connected. Like the energy for me is permeating through you and vice versa. And like, this is all one thing. All of this is just one main energy at the end of the day. And somehow it connected with the idea of my food. I just started thinking about food and what I'm eating. I think I was still having some thoughts about the burger versus the fruit and veggie fast. And then I realized that burger is so dense because it is from a deceased animal. So not only am I ingesting the meat, the actual muscle tissue, the flesh, but I am ingesting that animal's like that whatever it left over from its being and its existence, right? So the fear and the suffering that it went through in the conditions that it was living through, you know, the fear it went through when it was almost killed, right before it was killed, all of that is coming into my energy field. I don't know how I acknowledged it. I don't remember seeing any media about it at all, but I just realized, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. Like that doesn't make sense for them as a being, and it doesn't make sense for me to put that in my body as food compared to say like an apple or an orange that falls off of a tree. Like that doesn't make any sense. So realizing that everything was energy, I immediately decided, well, I'm not going to eat meat anymore. Like, I'm done. I'm not eating animals. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. And again, I never had known a vegetarian. I didn't have any vegetarian friends. It was just this awareness that came from me from the psilocybin, which I believe is a very sentient piece of consciousness of Mother Earth. So my brother decided to join me on that journey of being vegetarian, and basically 2 years went by and we're still eating a lot of generally not too different amounts of food, right? I'm still eating pizza. I'm just not eating pizza with pepperoni on it, right? I'm still eating, you know, baked goods that might have eggs or dairy in them, but I'm not eating chicken. I'm certainly not eating burgers again, right? That was the last burger I'd ever have. Now, everything changed in 2014 where I met Jenny. So actually, I had already met Jenny. We actually went to high school together way back in the day, but we kind of re-met and we started dating, and she ended up being vegan. She was vegan for about 1.5 years at that time from watching the movie Forks Over Knives. So that completely changed her whole focus just on thinking of health outcomes and everything like that. So I remember I was sitting there, I was eating like a bowl of like mac and cheese, I think at like Panera Bread or something like that. And she basically told me like, yeah, that cheese, I mean, it's this, if you're not eating meat, you know, it's pretty much coming from the same place. It's like the same stuff. And I thought about it. I'm like, it's the same proteins, it's the same fats, it's the same source. I'm like, this makes total sense. I guess I'm vegan now because there makes no sense to not, you know, to not eat the meat, but I'm going to eat the cheese and the dairy and all of that, you know? So I'm like, yes, totally, like, duh. So what's crazy about this too is I was in the process of moving over to Las Vegas, Nevada. So we first started dating, have a long distance relationship. I'm out in Las Vegas trying to figure out how to be vegan pretty much on my own. So that first 6 months of me being vegan was just trial and error, like trying to figure out what I can eat, what, you know, foods, you know, have milk in them, you know, different sauces or dressings and things. I mean, I'm learning, I'm being thrown right in without, you know, the resources and the things like that we have available today, right? So at the time, I didn't realize that I could even get protein from a vegan diet. I just didn't think about it. So the first several months of me being vegan, I'm just like, well, there's really no point of like working out because I'm not gonna be able to build any muscle because I'm not getting protein. So I just didn't try, or I didn't care. I didn't really worry about it. And that was okay with me because I was like, well, this aligns with my morals. So 6 months goes by, another 6 months goes by. We eventually move in together in Asheville, North Carolina, and we were right down the streets from a Whole Foods. So they got all the vegan goodies that I could ever ask for. They got all the things. They got the pizza. They've got, you know, the breakfast potatoes on the hot bar menu we get every day. They'd have just so many options. So I became just like a normal vegan eater, right? Not necessarily too focused on health. I was eating some good foods here or there, but I was so hung up on caffeine. I was constantly smoking weed and with cigars, so I was getting nicotine as well. And that was really affecting my adrenal glands. It was affecting my hunger hormones. So I was just like underweight, you know, I was like in the 140s. I kind of went back to more of that skinny fat kind of physique. I mean, some people would say different, but if I'm skinny, I have no muscle and I've got a bit of a belly and I've got body fat, and it's just, it wasn't me, you know, it wasn't me. But, you know, it took a big change for me to think about doing things differently. And that change was on a trip we took to Mexico. I remember this calisthenics video popped up on my YouTube account and I was just blown away. And I'm like, dude, I don't need any equipment. Like, I don't need a gym. Like, if I can do it like this, then I'm basically free and there's like nothing stopping me. Like, cause literally the only thing stopping me before is like, yeah, I'd switch from this diet to that diet, but it was just the ability to have the machines, have the cables, have the bench press machine, all that stuff that's been kind of here or there. So I got back from that trip and I immediately got into calisthenics, doing push-ups, doing pull-ups, just working on the basics. And then that's where I got inspired to now pay attention to my diet. So what I started looking into and realizing, like, well, guess what? Like, I actually can get protein on this diet. And at that time, I was just like motivated. I immediately got home and just started training calisthenics and just push-ups, pull-ups, just basic stuff. But that kind of got me a little bit more focused about, wait a minute, maybe I can actually do this. So then I go online and I start looking. I realize, oh, there are, vegan bodybuilders or vegan people who are getting fit, eating protein. I started discovering there are higher protein foods. And I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. This seems realistic. So around that time, I decided to make the switch to more whole food, plant-based ways of eating. So pretty much dropping oil. And like before this, we were right down the street from a Whole Foods. So I was getting those breakfast potatoes like every single day, oiled up breakfast potatoes, coffee in the morning. Oh, it was so bad. Oh, I can smell them right now. But I dropped the oil, I dropped salt, I stuck to whole foods. So I wasn't doing any more of like the prepackaged, like Amy's pizzas and like all the chips and hummus and all that stuff. I was sticking to way, way better foods. I finally got lean again. I was able to see my abs as a vegan, like for the first time. This was like 5-6 years in. And I was like, man, this is awesome. So I got to this great point, but then I realized, well, I'm still pretty just lean all together, pretty slim and slender. I'm like, I want to have some muscle. And then that's where the journey kind of picked up even more, as I was able to stay consistent with the training, I realized I definitely need to add in more calories. So that's where I really needed to look at things differently again and say, okay, whole foods, plant-based makes a lot of sense, but is there a way to actually get more protein than what I've been getting? Because this actually is a crucial element to build muscle. I need to make sure I've done all this reading for so long. It's just I've never been able to stick with it, right? So I was like, can I get enough protein? Can I get enough calories on a vegan diet? So that's what I started focusing on, is paying attention to my calorie intake, my protein intake. I started looking up all those high protein plant-based foods, started incorporating those, getting my protein up more and more and more. So it was really cool. It was a really, really fun journey because I did a lot of research on my own. I was not really looking at a whole lot of videos and things like that, just like this one, but I was just like on forums and I was just looking up food products and just trying to figure out, what's the best way I can make this happen. And over time, I was able to build up more muscle mass. So, when I look at my before and my current photo, there's about a 15-pound muscle mass difference, maybe 15-20 pounds, probably about 10 pounds of body fat. So I've shifted from like the 140s up into the 160s. And that's all on a plant-based vegan diet. So all the things that I've wanted, back when I was just a standard American dieter, I wanted that lean, fit physique. I wanted to look athletic. I never really wanted to be super huge. It was more about, I wanted to be like fit, lean, athletic, like ready to go, strong, agile, able to jump high, all of that stuff. And to be able to now be in this position where I've achieved my dream physique and I feel strong. I'm able to do movements that I never even thought possible. And I'm 38. Like, this is stuff I couldn't do when I was 28 or even 18. It's just amazing. So it's brought me to this point where now not only have I achieved the transformation for myself, but now I've helped over 100 vegans and plant-based eaters one-on-one through my Fit Vegan Body Blueprint coaching. And it's been so amazing to see people make progress and help them actually get high protein foods in while being vegan, while being plant-based, and not having to sacrifice and think, well, I got to start eating, fish again, or I got to start eating a steak. The reality is you can achieve all of your health and your fitness and performance goals on a plant-based diet. So you're aligned with yourself, with the animals, with the planet, and with your ethics and morals and your spirit. More strength, more mobility, more capability in their body, and more confidence so that you can take your shirt off and actually feel really good, at the pool or at the beach. Social gatherings are no longer an issue. You're taking photos and you feel okay being in the photos. Like, that's the thing that I love helping people with now, and helping people realize that you don't have to turn to animal foods for protein. The reality is you can get all the protein you need and more on a plant-based diet. You know, so that's how I went from animal-based to plant-based. It's been a wild ride, but at this point it's been 11 years of me being vegan, and I am not going back at all. Like, plant-based, vegan for life. I'm in it. It's easy when you get it going, you know? So if you're looking for help transitioning to going plant-based or vegan, or you're looking to be the fittest, strongest, healthiest version of yourself, fill out the application inside of the link in the description for my 12-month Fit Vegan Body Blueprint coaching program. It's the exact container, the process, the program, the structure that I take you through to take you from really not knowing where you're at, what your metabolism needs, how many calories you need in your body, what foods those look like, how do you create your meals, to knowing all that, to having the experience of losing body fat, building muscle, and being your fittest, strongest, and healthiest version that you can be. That's the key right there. This is the program I take all of my clients through. I run you through all 4 phases of the body transformation process. Metabolic priming, so we figure out exactly the amount of calories, the amount of nutrition you need to get to your goals. Then we move into fat loss acceleration, start burning off the body fat while holding on to muscle without having to add in any animal products at all, 100% vegan. Then we move into strategic muscle, where I teach you the other side of the coin, how to actually build muscle mass, add lean tissue, and add bone density to get you strong and fit for life. This all kind of coalesces into lifestyle integration, right? Lifetime mastery, being able to stick with this for the rest of your life because you understand the habits that are needed to be that fit, that strong, that healthy version of yourself. So if you're looking for help and you need a coach, then check out the link below for my application. Fill that out and I'll be in touch with all the info that you're going to need to get started. So much love, you guys. This has been my journey from animal-based to plant-based. Appreciate y'all being here and see you on the next one.